I failed at making banana pudding twice within 72 hours, and I'm a better writer because of it. I gained wisdom and strategy on how to navigate my writing career through banana pudding. You've heard that right. Banana pudding. I'm so glad to have you back here. If you're new, welcome. I am Aisha, a Christian book coach. I've written my first book and it will be self published in 2026. I help aspiring authors finally write the book that's been on their heart with strategy, consistency, and confidence. It was a few days before the 4th of July, and I have been set on making banana pudding. I was craving it for a few weeks, so I figured what better time to make it than on a holiday weekend and enjoy it with my family outside on our deck in the warm weather. I've only eaten it once before and it was surprisingly good. And so I decided that I wanted to make it myself. I wanted to make it from scratch and make a dairy free version of it. So I researched recipes online and decided to go with one from a food blogger whose chocolate cake I absolutely enjoy. The whole week I had looked forward to enjoying the fruits of my labor. I just knew how my 4th of July day would play out. I would throw some food on the grill, sit outside on the deck with my family, enjoy a quiet day, and top it off with a refreshing banana pudding. Spoiler alert, that didn't happen. I did enjoy my day with my family. We had a nice, quiet day, eating food and enjoying each other's company. However, the banana pudding was a fail. It was inedible. It was extremely too sweet. When I tell you instant sugar rush, instant headache, instant jitters, it was the first time I've ever experienced anything like that. I was disappointed initially because it didn't live up to my expectations, but then I got instant revelation. And I was no longer disappointed, but really amused and appreciated the process that it took me to even get to that point. The previous 72 hours of making and remaking the banana pudding was symbolic of my book writing journey. Here are 4 nuggets of wisdom that I internalized from my failed attempt at making banana pudding. Wisdom number 1: writing a book requires patience. Like making banana pudding for the first time, writing a book for the first time requires patience. For some context, banana pudding is made up of a few key layers, right? You have the actual pudding, which is the foundation of it. A lot of people use vanilla pudding, some use banana flavored pudding, but for me, I use vanilla pudding. So you have the vanilla pudding, then you have the vanilla wafers, you have fresh sliced bananas, and if you're feeling fancy, some whipped cream. So just like banana pudding has layers, so does writing a book. There are different steps and iterations that it takes to write your first draft, and there are multiple steps in between writing that first draft and publishing it. When I first started writing my first book, I didn't even know what it took to write the first draft and get a solid manuscript in hand. One thing that I can say is not knowing what that process would look like, not knowing the demands and the consistency and what it would take me to really get to that finished manuscript. Not knowing that honestly fueled my fire to continue and move forward because in my mind, I will write that book in, let's say, 6 months or less, send it off to an editor, do all the stuff that I need to do, make it pretty, and boom, I'm able to sell it wherever, whether it's in bookstores, online, or in person. That was not the case, and I learned that rather quickly as I went through that process. While not knowing everything that I had to do in order to make that manuscript complete, while I see the positive in it, it also had a negative impact in my writing journey because I thought it would be such a quick and easy task of just putting my thoughts on paper and boom, I have a solid manuscript that was book quality. I set unrealistic goals for myself. And when I did that, I ended up disappointed that I didn't meet those goals. I questioned if I was good enough. Will I ever finish this book? It just wasn't helpful to my overall process in writing this book that has been on my heart for such a long time. Writing a book is similar to banana pudding because it requires different ingredients and it requires a layered approach. Remember, banana pudding You have the vanilla pudding base, you have the sliced bananas, you have vanilla wafers and the whipped cream and anything else that you want to incorporate in that. Writing a book, you write the first draft, but there are multiple iterations of that first draft that need to be done before moving on to the next stage, which is editing, and moving on to the next stage and the next stage and the next stage before you're even able to self publish. And my process has made me realize that I need to be patient in that and really just slow down and enjoy the journey of making something that started in my mind and see it come into fruition. And with patience with myself and patience with the process, I was able to surrender my need to control and allow creativity to flow and allow the story, the book, to shape into something that's even more beautiful than what I had originally pictured in my mind. I've taken a scenic route in figuring out how to write my first book and self publish it. If you're ready to write your first book and you want to get clear on the process, stick around to the end because I have a free gift to give you. Wisdom number 2: when it comes to writing the book that's been on your heart, trust your instincts. I told you I tried making the banana pudding twice. On the first attempt, I got up to the stage of making the vanilla pudding base, which I also made from scratch. The flavor was good, the texture was off. Instead of being creamy pudding, it was more like putty or slime. And literally, if I were to pour into the bowl, like it felt like one big blob. And I'll explain later in the video why that came to be and why it was that texture. But the point that I want to stick to right now is that that vanilla base was too sweet. And in the second attempt, I should have added less sugar. I knew from the first go around that it was going to be sweet. I didn't listen to my gut. I should have adjusted the amount of sugar that was in the recipe to align more with my taste buds. But anyway, I just moved forward. Once I took the pudding off the stove, I let it cool, then I put it in the refrigerator, let it set for hours. Perfect texture, little on the sweet side. Then it was time for me to assemble. This particular recipe instructed me to incorporate coconut condensed milk. And against my better judgment, I added the condensed milk anyway because my mindset was they're the expert. This is my first time making banana pudding, so what do I know? That's where I was wrong. I know what my taste buds are like. I know what my family enjoys. I know we can't tolerate extremely sweet foods. So I should have paid attention to our needs instead of thinking that somebody else knows what is best for me and what my palate can tolerate. Stick with me here because I'm drawing the parallel between my journey of writing and me disregarding my intuition because in my mind, this person knew more than I did. If an extra sweet vanilla pudding base wasn't enough, once I assembled it, we also had the sweetness from the ripe bananas, the vanilla wafers, and then the whipped cream topping. Just poor decisions after poor decisions on my part, even reluctantly assembling this thing, knowing, oh my gosh, this might be super sweet. And then after letting it set and finally tasting it, it was even sweeter than I expected. And it wasn't palatable for me or my family. Okay, so now on to writing my first book. When I first started writing my book, I lacked confidence. I knew I was called to be a writer. God has given me a message to share around purpose and walking in our identity and what it looks like to live a life of honoring our calling. And knowing that I was called to write this, I still questioned my ability to do so in a way that measured up to other authors. What formulas did they use to write their books? I also considered their tone and how did they write their message because clearly they're selling books, clearly they're the experts. And as I continued to write, my confidence continued to grow and I realized their style works for them because they're a unique individual. They have a certain palette and a certain taste for the way that they share their message. They also know their target audience and their palettes, how they receive words, the style of writing that they enjoy and that they're used to. Me, I know the message that God has called me to share. I have developed my voice. I know who my target audience is. Just as I know that my family doesn't do super sweet desserts, I know that the people who my book is for, their palette is most aligned with my authentic voice, with my style of writing. And that's what I need to stick to. I need to listen to my intuition and be authentic in who I am and not try to follow a formula or someone else's methods in writing, because our audiences are different, because our messages are different, and most of all, we are different. I, as a writer, am different from other writers out there. So I needed to trust my intuition. And that's something that I've learned and I stand by. The more I wrote, the more my confidence grew. The more I leaned into my intuition, the more I leaned into the voice that God was developing within me. I knew the message that God was calling me to write, and I knew how He was calling me to write it. Yes, those other writers might have been experts in the message that they were called to share, but I'm an expert too. I'm an expert in my uniqueness. I'm an expert in the tone that my audience has a palette for. As a writer, I don't want my books to give readers a sugar rush. I want it to be just right, palatable, savored, and enjoyed. Wisdom number 3: be flexible in writing as the story unfolds. In my book, I use stories to drive my points home. In the beginning of writing my initial draft, I had written lots of stories with strong transformational lessons. However, the more that I wrote, the more the story was being developed, I realized that there were even stronger and more applicable stories that I could use that flow better with the core message of the entire book. Remember, I said the first batch of vanilla pudding came out like a slime, putty type of texture, a far ways away from an actual pudding. And this was because the recipe that I used suggested that we can either use cornstarch as a thickening agent or arrowroot. Now, I've used arrowroot before. I've used it in my pancakes. I've used it in other recipes. So I was very familiar with it. And I wanted to use it because although I already know that banana pudding is not the most healthy dessert, I still want to add some type of nutritional value to it. Cornstarch doesn't have much nutritional value, but it gets the job done. So my first batch of vanilla pudding, I used arrowroot as the thickening agent. Instantly realized that while it's good at many things, this was not the job for arrowroot. It simply wasn't suitable for pudding. Similarly, when I was writing my first book, there were some points that I wanted to make and some stories that I wanted to share that I knew would be the revelation that someone needed. However, when writing anything, whether it's a book, an article, whatever it is, all of your points have to have a relevant story, and all of your stories need to have a relevant point. So I realized that just as the arrowroot was nutrient dense, my stories were nutrient dense, but they weren't suitable for the overall message of the book. Now, I didn't scrap them totally because I know that they will be most suitable for future books, newsletters, maybe even YouTube videos like this one. But they were not suitable for the first book that I was writing. And that's okay. I had to be flexible. I had to let go of any attachment that I had to those stories and realize that they will see their day at some point. This was just not the place for them. Wisdom number 4: being a good writer is not about perfectionism, it's about becoming. It's human nature to want our creations to be without flaws. In an ideal world, everyone who reads your book will give it 5 stars across the board and rave about it. We mainly feel this way because writing and publishing a book requires vulnerability. We're letting the world into our intimate thoughts, which opens us up to opinions, whether favorable or unfavorable ones. I spent countless of months writing and rewriting the same sections and criticizing every single word because I wanted it to be perfect. I wanted to choose the right words. I wanted to leave very little room for criticism until I realized that there's no such thing as perfectionism. There is no point of arrival or having arrived because we're living beings who are learning every single day. We're growing and evolving. As you continue to write, you'll continuously learn new literary techniques. you'll continue to develop your voice, especially as you have even more lived experiences. Your beliefs, your mindsets, the message that you have to share will be different than the message that you had 5 years ago. The more we write, the more in tune we become with our identity. We develop our unique voice and style. And again, we are continuously being cultivated in every stage in life, which reflects in our writing. When making the banana pudding, I learned a lesson at each point of failure. I learned one, to go easy on the sugar, because once the sugar's in, you can't take it out. But if after I make it and assemble it and realize that, okay, it can use a little more sweetness, then I can always get creative on how to sweeten it. I learned that if I want my desired texture that I know and love, then don't use arrowroot, use cornstarch. I learned to trust my instincts. I certainly didn't need to add the condensed milk in the pudding because it was already sweet. So next time I'll omit it. I even learned how to manage my time better. There are a few points in making the banana pudding where it needs to sit in the fridge and set for some hours. So I learned patience. So these are some lessons when it comes to banana pudding that I would take with me if I ever do decide to attempt to make it again. And the same goes for writing my book. In writing my first book, I've become extremely clear on who I am, my message, and who I'm writing for. I discovered that I enjoy telling stories and making my readers feel like they were right there with me. I enjoy using literary techniques and creativity to share factual events and drive my message home. I no longer seek perfectionism, and I'm proud of what I've written. I even noticed my growth as a writer from when I first started 3 years ago, how my style and voice and even techniques have strengthened. And I'm excited to see even more evolution in my next books and all the other books that come after that. So, this, my friends, is the revelation that I got from my failed attempts with an S at making banana pudding. As promised, I have a free gift for you. I've created a free 3-day mini course to help aspiring authors like you take the necessary steps to write and self publish your book. Click the link in the description, and I look forward to you joining the course. I'll see you later.